Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the City of Southfield City Council being held on Monday, October 24th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Banks,
Present.
Councilman Brightwell,
Here.
Councilman Cruz,
Present.
Councilman Frazier. Here. Councilman Hoskins,
Here.
Councilman Mandelbaum,
Present.
and Councilwoman Taylor.
Here.
Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Would we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Could we all please just have a moment of silence in recognition of Vincent Gregory, who is a former commissioner and state rep, Southfield resident. He passed away on Saturday. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, we have our communications. The Southfield City Council has established the following rules of procedure for all speakers. No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or other elected officials that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member or other elected officials perform his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language toward any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of the public meeting of the city council and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. One second, we'll grab the names. Thank you so much. Our first person that's asking to speak is Mr. Harold Hill. Mr. Hill. Okay, I don't see you. Next, we have Ms. Yolanda Haynes.
Good evening, Honorable Council and Mayor. My name is Yolanda Haynes. My address is listed on the paper there. I come today as a resident in the city of Southfield. I am speaking on the issue of the Southfield School bond proposal. I would like to say that there are very many of us that are against this proposal. There has not been any town hall meeting as it should have been. If we can talk about the deer, we need to talk about the bond issue. It should have been discussed. We are talking about a financial issue that will be affecting every resident in the city of Southfield. I live near Eisenhower School, which has been closed for the most part of my kids' school life, and I have several kids. That school has been used for a dog park, a football field, a sexual encounter field, a dumping area, a drug raid, and very many things. It has only been until recently that a cable cord was put up just to block cars from going back there. It is not in the best condition now. There was at one time a school of some sort that was using the building, and I have seen people come in and out of that building taking furniture out of that. Now, that is a building that is still on the tax roll. That means that me and people like me are still paying for this, which is very disappointing. And there's a saying that says, if you are faithful in the little things, you will be faithful in the large ones. But if you are dishonest in the little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibility. And I say this to the Southfield Public School. You have not been faithful, fiscally responsible, or to this situation in regards to us paying taxes and you having these buildings. There are more buildings that I found out that are not being used, that are vacant, some that are not even in condition to be in, that need to be demolished, that we are still paying for. Shame on you all. And I am so disappointed to see, I know you all have positions that you have to get elected for and that you might not be able to speak against certain things, but you are the body that we elected. And if this is not something that you support, forget an election, you need to say something about this. We got you in here, you were voted by somebody here, and you need to let us know that you're not supporting this, because this is going to hurt us. And if this is for the kids, think about the parents that pay for the kids. Kids don't have jobs to pay for what parents do. They don't pay house notes. They don't pay taxes. The parents do. So, this whole idea of a community center, what community center? There are not even enough kids to go to all the schools here. How are they going to build a community center? And that is not something the school should be taking up. If anything they should be taking up is the better education of the kids that are already in the schools. You have very little parental support, and you have very little people that are having kids today. So what are we talking about here? I mean, this is serious, and it needs to be taken as such, and we need to have a community forum or something about this, because I don't hear any noise about it anywhere. And shame on anybody for not saying anything. If you take $1 of my money, I want it back, and I don't want it misused, and I am tired of it.
Thank you. Next, we have Ingrid Brown.
Madam, she's appointee.
Oh, okay. Next, we have Mr. Evan Carter.
Good evening. Evan Carter, Southfield resident, 21290 Los Palmos Street. I'm here to address the issue of the city attorney introducing a letter about considering adult use marijuana in the city of Southfield. I've been doing a little bit of research since the topic began to be discussed, and I began coming to meetings at the beginning of the year. And it's somewhat of a controversial topic on the medical front, but what I've found is that there are very few positive benefits beyond the euphoria it provides. It provides some medical benefits, but not too many. And for those who want those benefits, we have 2 establishments, and now they want recreational. They laid out 3 things in their letter that it would provide. It would save and bring back 50 jobs, more or less. It would preserve the investments they put into the building, which they claim is more than $1 million. And they said it would bring in the city about $56,000 per year. Now, in a former life, I worked at state level politics, and all of these things are very interesting claims. One, jobs claims are always tenuous, every time, whenever they make them. Will they actually provide 50 jobs or not? Loom closed because the economy went down. Does that have to do with Southfield, or does that have to do with the economy? Secondly, when Loom came in and when Dream Cannon came in, they knew that we were a medical-only city, and yet they came in under the guise of hoping to get recreational. Is that the city's issue, or is that their issue if they lose their investment? And thirdly, is the city of Southfield concerned about $56,000 per year? I would hazard to guess that the answer to that is no. So my question for the council today, as this is brought forward and considered, is to look at what they've brought forward, which when looked at in the light of day appears to be pretty weak, and to consider, is this something that we want to bring into the city or even put up to a vote when these are the benefits offered, when there's a lot of drawbacks that haven't been discussed? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have, and I don't know the first name, but the last name is Koza, K-O-Z-A. Okay. Then we have Diana King.
Hi, I'm Diana King. I'm from
Pull the
28795
mic-
San Carlos.
Pull the microphone down.
Oh, okay, sorry. And I'm here as president of the Green Trees Homeowners Association that Mr. Carter, who just did the presentation, belongs to. And I'm here to give you the research that I've done on the use of recreational marijuana from the medical standpoint of view. There are a lot of health issues that could incur, a person can develop with the recreational marijuana. For instance, mental changes, increased anxiety, changes in behavior, lung disease, heart disease. There has been no study that proved that marijuana is a good agent for pain relief. What it does do, it gives the person the feel of euphoria. If you're euphoric, you don't know you're in pain. Another issue would be increase in crime. I did a research from a journal on justice, criminal justice, and the study stated that the crimes committed all across the board, be it robbery or stealing cars or whatever, was increased by 44.7%. And I really don't think our city needs to increase numbers as far as crimes. We have enough of that going on. We do have children here that we're trying to raise, and we want to keep this a safe place for everyone. So I am asking you, please do not approve recreational marijuana. It's of no benefit to anybody in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Sharon Carter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sharon Carter. I'm a resident of Southfield. I came tonight to let you know I'm against recreational marijuana sales in the city of Southfield. As a resident here, it's my job to speak out, and as a council, it's your job to listen. So I am letting my views and convictions be known. I am against medical marijuana dispensaries. I looked online, and I feel there are plenty of places in the area for people who choose to buy marijuana for recreational use. It is not necessary to have a medical marijuana dispensary, not medical, excuse me, we have those, recreational marijuana dispensary in our city. So I'm asking you, please, keep our city family friendly and do not allow recreational marijuana dispensaries in Southfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Kenyatta Taylor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure how everything goes. I'm trying to, well, my name is Kanesha Taylor. I'm a resident. I live at 20202 Westover, and my concern is housing. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to the right people but my concern is the group homes and the Airbnbs that's popping up around my home. I didn't purchase my home in 2016 for group home activity and Airbnb. I'm the third house off the corner, and from the third house off the corner, I'm amongst two group homes and one Airbnb. Two on one side, the first house preceding the house before mine. And now my concern is the home that they're fixing up. I've spoken with the workers and the actual homeowners reside in California. So now my concern is, what is this gonna be? Is it gonna be, am I gonna have neighbors? Am I gonna have a family? And that's just a concern of mine. I spoke with, and I'm sorry I don't know your name, but I spoke with you concerning that when you were running for election. And I don't know if I have to get a petition or where would I go from here is my question. Or are we just doing comments, or will questions be answered? I don't.
We're doing comments at this time, but we have your information, but we will get back with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Taylor, may I just interject here with group homes, we have no control over. The Department of Social Services, the State of Michigan licenses them. Many times we don't even know they're coming. And the council is working on an ordinance to govern Airbnbs.
Okay, that's what I didn't know, because
I
I'm quite
understand.
sure if you
And-
purchase a home, you're fit to do with it as you wish, right? But
I would, if you can work with our Human Services Department, and if there's an issue, continuing issue with the group home, we can assist you in filing a complaint with the state of Michigan that licenses these homes.
oh, okay. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, we have Pamela Gerald.
Wipes. Good evening, Council. I wanted to let you know, Madam Chair, I made a mistake and put my husband's name on there. He's not going to speak. I have been talking to this council and other councils for many years about the ordinance and these ice machines at the gas stations. If a gas station was purchased, whether or not the machine is on the site plan, it should be grandfathered into any ordinance. But I have asked this council for the last year to not be so expeditious in putting together an ordinance before you look at all the facts. And there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. So a lot of these gas stations have these Planet Aid boxes on there. Well, I've been doing some research on Planet Aid. They had an address in Romulus, Michigan. They have been closed since 2020. It looks like their headquarters could possibly be in Elk Ridge, Maryland, and another city in Massachusetts. I've got someone checking on that. But if you're talking about the ice machine altering the site plan, and that the owner of the gas station, whether he purchased it or not, and the ice machine was there at the gas station, they have to do all of these hoops to have the site plan amended. Well, if you look at where these boxes are, and you've got some of these boxes taking up 4 and 5 parking spaces in these developments, then you need to get all of those developers in here because their site plan has been altered as soon as the boxes are put there. Now, if the city didn't give permission and this company did it on their own, I'm going to, through the chair, appeal to our city attorney and say that you should be trying to go after this company for littering, and if the boxes are there and you didn't authorize it, if it's going to cost you money to move the box, then you might want to take it to a trash dumpster, and it's a steel box, get paid some money for the box. I don't know what you're going to do, but you can't selectively enforce and say if the Planet box is there, it doesn't alter that developer's site plan, but at a gas station, an ice machine that we need, because in that particular quadrant, there are so many power outages. And what does a person do when a power outage occurs? They go right to the gas station and get ice to put in their freezer so that their food won't go bad. So I'm going to encourage you to move at a more glacial pace before you start enforcing these ordinances with tickets, and give some careful consideration. You don't want to run these gas stations out of the city of Southfield. And there's other things that we could be talking about instead of a ice machine like these boxes that are an eyesore.
Thank you. That will conclude our comments, communications for this evening. Next, we have our appointments. We have 3 reappointments and 2 appointments.
Good evening, council. This evening, we have 3 reappointments to the Historic District Commission. Mary Lewis, Darla Van Hoy, and Patricia McLemore. And then I have 2 appointments due to vacancies on the Downtown Development Authority. Angel Abdullahad is the new superintendent of the Oak Park Public Schools. His predecessor has retired. We always have, because the Downtown Development Authority includes the Oak Park School District, we always have a representative. And then secondly, the manager of Outback Steakhouse, who had been on the DDA board for years, is no longer with Outback, and instead we've asked Ingrid Brown from Huntington Bank, which is in the DDA branch, to fill the other vacancy. I don't believe Mary Lewis or Darla Van Hoy or Patricia McLemore are here this evening, but Mr. Abdullahad and Ms. Brown are here. So I'd like to ask them to come up.
They're here. They're over here.
Other side.
I'm sorry. Oh, you're behind us. I'm looking this way. Okay, come on up. Council, I'm asking for a motion for the reappointments and a motion for the appointments.
Council?
Madam Chair, I move, may I? Oh, I move that we approve the reappointment to the Historic District Commission as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the reappointment to the Historic District Commission of Mary Lewis, Darla Van Hoy, and Patricia McLemore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
I'd like to move an appointment to the Downtown Development Authority for Angel Abdullahad and Ingrid Brown.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the appointment to the Downtown Development Authority of Angel Abdullahad and Ingrid Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to ask the deputy clerk to swear our 2 new appointees into office. Congratulations. Look forward to working with you. Congratulations. Look forward to working with you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Council. Next, we have our consent agenda items, A, B, C, and D. Item A is the resolution for governmental bodies, performance and indemnification for the Michigan Department of Transportation. Item B is the Southfield Police Department Traffic Improvement Association grant. Item C is the approval of MDOT contract for earmark, grant to complete a pathway on M39 Service Drive from 9 Mile to Cornell. And item D is the Regional 9 Mile Corridor Study. Would any of these items, would you like to have pulled or for further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Okay, seeing none.
I'd like to have item B pulled for a brief discussion.
Okay. Item B will be pulled for a brief discussion. Council, can we have a vote on the other items?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move approval of consent agenda items A, C, and D.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve consent agenda items A, C, and D as previously read. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item B, Councilman Brightwell?
Madam Chair, since we track overtime substantially in the Finance Committee, and I see that this particular item will be paid exclusively by overtime funds. And I would like to instruct the Finance Department to make sure that we realize these funds are being reimbursed to the city, because departments are being gigged when their overtime is over a certain percent for their allotment for that month. And so I would like for the Finance Department to just indicate these funds for this particular item, which is traffic improvement, to be identified as funds that are being reimbursed to the city.
Okay.
Duly noted. I mean, in order to be reimbursed by the grant, we have to track the time. So we do track it, and it is segregated.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure it's highlighted on the
Yep.
report when you see it, to indicate that the department is not doing anything wrong.
Certainly.
It is being reimbursed. Okay.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, with that, I move that we approve consent agenda item B, Southfield Police Department Traffic Improvement Association grant.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve consent agenda item B, the Southfield Police Department Traffic Improvement Association grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. No public hearings. Next, we come to our ordinances. We have 3 ordinances to enact. Our first ordinance is ordinance number 1758, the rezoning request for Contour Development Company.
Madam Chair, we recommend enactment of ordinance number 1758, subject to the final review and approval of the ODD documents by the city planner and city attorney.
Council?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move enactment, and I'd like to move the enact ordinance number 1758.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz, for the approval of the enactment of ordinance number 1758. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we recommend enactment of ordinance number 1761, subject to the final review and approval of the ODD agreement by the city planner and city attorney.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move enactment of ordinance number 1761.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Hoskins, to approve enactment ordinance number 1761 as presented in our packet. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, Madam Chair, we recommend the enactment of ordinance number 1762, subject to the final review and approval of the ODD agreement by the city planner and city attorney.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move enactment of ordinance number 1762.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve enactment ordinance number 1762 as presented in our packet here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we move to our agenda items that are for discussion and/or action. Our item A is the First Amendment to Northland Supplemental Development Agreement with Contour Development.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. This evening, the council is being asked to approve the First Amendment to the Northland Supplemental Development Agreement with Contour Development. As you may recall, July of '21, there were a number of agreements that the city approved before the actual purchase by Contour of the Northland Mall. This particular agreement identified requirements binding Northland City Center, which is a Contour-related entity, and the city to certain provisions related to the property of the development. As you know, the developer has acquired additional property to add to the overall project, which was the former Vibe building located on the southwest part of the property where the former Vibe building was located. The development of the Costco Business Center, which is the first in the state of Michigan, is needed to be purchased from Contour. And for this evening, we're asking that the honorable body approve the two amendments, subject to City Attorney King's review and approval. The amendments, or I should say the approval, will result in a positive fiscal impact for the city. As we did our first initial projections on revenue, the Costco project was nowhere near where it is today. So with the approval of that particular project, it will enhance the revenue back to the city and thus generate revenue that will be eligible for brownfield increment and effectively accelerate the payments, especially towards the $20 million that the city has invested in the property. This evening, I have with me Mr. Brian Holt, who is part of the Miller Canfield practice and is the city's, I should say, the city's consultant on this, who will discuss the two amendments in more specifics, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Good evening. I'm Brian Holt with Miller Canfield, and I've been representing the city of Southfield in connection with these negotiations with Contour. For the supplemental development agreement, the proposals for the amendment here, the existing arrangement did not allow Contour to transfer a piece of property until construction was completed. In order for the Costco deal to move forward, they build their own buildings. So we're looking to amend the supplemental development agreement to allow the transfer of the Costco, the portion for the Costco development to Costco, at which point then Costco will construct its improvements itself rather than Contour doing those improvements. And the second part of the amendment we're looking for is to restructure the phasing of when construction is being done to allow reframe where the utilities that are going down to service the Costco parcel. Those were originally going to be part of phase 2, and we're moving them forward into phase 1 so that they can be completed now and Costco can get moving forward on their construction.
If I may reference the map that is in front of the council, most of the property which is in blue along Greenfield Road, it was defined as phase 1. The property that is in white, that is bordered by the yellow, is actually where the Vibe Credit Union was located and where the Costco Center will be located at right now. The yellow represents the new road coming off of Greenfield Road, coming along and moving south along Northland Drive. The utilities will be parallel to that, and as Mr. Holt referenced, it will allow the capture of revenue for the utility supporting that as well as the road. So that provides sort of a visual of what we're trying to accomplish here this evening.
Okay, thank you. Council, do we have any questions?
Madam Clerk, or Madam President?
Yes. Councilman Frazier?
Yes. If the ownership of the property is transferred to Costco, and there seems to be a problem getting work done, who do we hold responsible for following through on that to get done? Are we after Costco or are we after someone else?
After the property is transferred to Costco, it would no longer be subject to the supplemental development agreement, and Costco's obligated to move forward and comply with all the required, zoning and planning, requirements that would be set forth under the ODD. And I think Mr. Crowe could speak to that if there are any questions about that.
And when do you expect this to happen?
As we understand that the transfer to Costco is anticipated to occur in December, and they are Costco is anxious to get moving forward on construction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Council, Terry, did you want to read anything?
No, just I'll reiterate that even though Costco will be owning the property separately, they're still governed by the Overlay Development District and all the design guidelines that you enacted.
Okay, thank you. Council, are we prepared to vote?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that we approve the First Amendment to Northland Supplemental Development Agreement with Contour Development.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum, to approve the First Amendment to Northland Supplemental Development Agreement with Contour Development as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the council calendar, the meeting schedule for 2023. Council, do we have any questions, or Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah. Last year, we incorporated several meetings to deal with the budget, and I thought it was very significant. I thought it was very insightful for council and obviously for the public also. Now, my question, and I perhaps could have brought this up offline, but by having the meetings in May, isn't that, because previously I had wanted to have the meetings as early as possible, December, January, or whenever there will be some substantive discussions about items that are in the budget. So just from a qualitative standpoint, if by having these meetings in May, are we in a position to affect the budget at that point in time, other than info?
If I may, Madam President, thank you. The schedule by charter is the administrator transmits the budget to the mayor by the April 1st, and then the mayor, at the first regular meeting in May, transmits the budget. So that budget dates, those, we've landed in the month of May for that reason. That's how those dates are determined as to when they'll happen. But there's nothing that would preclude, council and having input, by way of departments, administration earlier. I would probably suggest that perhaps a goal planning session. And in the past, pre-COVID, we had gotten in the habit that we were doing those in December, only a few years ago. In fact, while you were president, we did that, and COVID kind of threw us off. And in fact, if you'll recall, right before COVID, we were planning a weekend retreat And I would encourage council to do that, and that's an opportunity for that budget to, for that input to come to the administration before the budget is put together.
Okay, well, I think you kind of answered my question, that, and or suggestion that we try to get council involved a little earlier into the goal setting and or the planning process.
So is that something we want to review, City Administrator, for December?
The administration would welcome that. When we did, even the half-day retreat in the library was very productive regarding goals. And,
Okay, so we could schedule something with the clerk, and then we could.
and if I may also, this schedule is pretty, this early by statute. We don't have to produce it till closer to the year, prior to the first meeting of the new calendar year. We produce this calendar so that the city, it can be advertised in the city calendar as it's going into production.
Okay. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. Just a few suggestions for meeting changes. Last year, council approved the January schedule as January 9, January 16, and January 23rd. That was approved by this body. I realize that the 16th, the City Hall is closed, but can we keep with the schedule that we approved last year and change the date from the 16th to the 17th versus 9, 23, and 30?
So we would do it the day following
On a
Martin Luther
Tuesday.
King.
We originally said 9, 16, 23. So can we do 9, 17, and 23?
That would be a Tuesday instead of a Monday. And that's the language in the charter.
Right.
If we don't have a meeting on a Monday, we'll say we're going to have it on a Tuesday.
So if, that's,
So
I
you're,
guess,
so you're saying for January only?
well, January, and then I have another suggestion for change.
Okay.
So for January, if council would consider that. And then also in March, would we consider March 6th and March 13th versus March 13th and March 20th?
If I may, March 6th happens to be a Jewish holiday that Monday evening. So we thought that it would be best to try to avoid that date if possible.
Okay, can we do the following week in March? 6, 13, okay,
We have 13th and 20th.
I know. Would council consider the following week after the 20th?
Instead
The
of,
20th? I'm looking, hold on.
You're on March 27th?
Yeah, let me get my calendar, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was a Jewish holiday. Yes, March 27th.
Is that an addition or instead of?
Instead of, or we can make it,
she's saying instead of the 20th.
So 13th and 27th?
correct.
If I could, through the
Yes.
chair, I'm just curious, what are the changes necessary for?
Well,
Is there anything in particular?
well, the one in January, I thought we already had the date scheduled, so I brought that forward, and there's a conflict for me, so I was just wondering if we could change it to another date.
I don't know if I missed something else.
No, it's just a conflict.
I don't have a problem with it.
On our current calendar, we have 9, 23, and 30th for the first.
This calendar here is not correct. I don't know, this looks like it's a new calendar that was put here. If you look on the city's website, it says right here, under the clerk's page, 9, 16, and 23. And that's, I remember programming it last year. So I'm not sure, we'd have to go back to the minutes to see, was it 9, 16, 23, Or did we change it? But I don't recall changing it. Huh?
Okay.
I mean, if it doesn't matter to council, that's all I'm asking.
It doesn't matter to any council member if we do Monday or Tuesday for January? That'll help you out, right? Okay, we can, Madam Clerk?
That should not be a problem. We will reissue a new.
So what is that revision, Madam President?
Could you repeat the revision, please, for January?
So we have a revision for January that we will meet on January 17th, the Monday, the Tuesday after the holiday. So it will be January 9th, 17th, and 30th.
No, 9, 17, and 23.
So we're getting rid of the 30th.
Correct.
Okay.
Because originally what was approved was 9, 16, and 23. We approved that last year.
Okay, so let me confirm with council. January 9th, 17th, which is a Tuesday, and the 23rd, which is a Monday.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because of the Martin Luther King holiday.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
And then also, I don't know if council would consider the March dates. I'm going to leave that up to you.
Nobody has a problem with changing them to 3/13 and 3/27.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
So a new calendar will be issued stating March 13th and March 27th will be our two meeting dates in March of 2023.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
Can I ask for one more change?
Yes.
If that's possible? The date would be, and I apologize I didn't catch this earlier, October 2nd. That Monday also happens to be a Jewish holiday.
And it's my birthday.
And I don't want you to work on your birthday either.
Well, wait a minute. If we're talking about birthdays.
If it's possible to do the following week, Tuesday, because that Monday happens to be Indigenous People Day, to do it on October 10th and 23rd, as long as the city administrator doesn't have a problem with that, or anyone on council either.
Okay. Does anyone have any objections to Tuesday, October 10th?
No.
Okay. So there will be no meeting the first week of October, and we would have the meeting October 10th, Tuesday, 2023. Okay, all right.
Okay, so I
Any
just
other
want-
changes?
This
Councilman Brett?
this is purely clerical. Madam Clerk, whenever you make the changes of this and you put the change and pass it out, can you date this at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
So just revise it, put a date on it, because I have a calendar that I had on my wall, office wall for quite a while, and but anyway, okay, that was just for clerical purposes, so we would know when the last change was made. Okay.
And then the last comment I had, because we made so many changes, are we okay with the changes, or do we want to wait till our next meeting and just add it to the consent agenda, just to make sure we're all
I was
We're all
going to
okay.
yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, that we just get all the changes, have an opportunity to review it, and it can go under the consent agenda. So, thank you very much. Yep.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay. Next, we have our 2022 election security grant.
Good evening, Madam President. I'm here for the 2022 Election Security Grant, which is providing $1,500 per 2022 precinct for election security-related costs.
Is your microphone on?
Yes, ma'am.
They couldn't hear you. Would you mind repeating?
Yes, good evening. I'm here to discuss the 2002 Election Security Grant. As you know, right now, security is of the utmost importance regarding our elections, and we are going to need several new things added on the floor for the elections moving forward. We're going to need tablets, we're going to need laptops to make sure that our elections are secure and that they are moving efficiently. This grant will help us with making sure that we are able to get those tablets and those laptops.
Okay. Councilwoman Banks?
Are we considering any type of security at every single location? Because there have been some articles in the newspaper that I have found very disturbing. And one is that they are targeting certain communities, and Southfield was listed. So have we considered placing some type of security guard? I know we can't do police officers, but every single location so people feel also safe and secure if there's a problem?
Well, as the August election, we worked with Chief Barron, and we had the police officers circulating all of our precincts to make sure everyone knew that there was a police presence. And our election workers were put on notification if at any time they felt that there was a threat, the number to call to make sure someone could swiftly get out to that precinct.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, are we prepared to vote?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we authorize the acceptance of the 2022 Election Security Grant for up to $55,000.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Hoskins, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve the 2022 Election Security Grant as presented in our packet. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the authorization to purchase replacement vehicles for the Deputy Fire Chief.
Good evening, Madam President, Council, Mayor. So I'm seeking authorization to replace the vehicle for the Deputy Fire Chief. This is a take-home vehicle. Currently, the vehicle is a 2017 Chevy Tahoe with over 130,000 miles. This vehicle has been reviewed in terms of mileage, the repair history, and input from the fire department mechanics as well as the motor pool, and seeking is due to be replaced. It's due to be replaced with the 2023 GMC Yukon. The cost to replace this vehicle is going to be $64,683. The Yukon itself is $59,683 with additional $5,000 of adding the radios and lighting packages. This vehicle has been approved in the capital improvement plan for the 22-23, and the funds for this will be coming out of the 2023 Fire Equipment Revolving Fund. This vehicle will be repurchased out of Todd Winsel Buick GMC and Oakland County Cooperative Purchasing Consortium. I'm seeking approval for this vehicle, please.
Council, do we have any questions for the chief? Okay, seeing none, are we prepared to vote?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the approval of the authorization to purchase a replacement vehicle for the Deputy Fire Chief.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the authorization to purchase the replacement vehicle for the Deputy Fire Chief as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is the authorization to purchase a self-contained breathing apparatus.
Okay, all right. So fire departments is seeking to request a self-containing breathing apparatus, one SCBA compressor fill station, and one oxygen fill station. The SCBA, I'll start with the SCBA the SCBA itself is comprised of 60 SCBA harnesses, 120 face pieces, and 132 bottles. Currently, the SCBAs on the department are 15 years old, and this proposal will bring us up to the National Fire Protection Association's current rules and regulations dealing with SCBAs. This will also put a new SCBA on all the rigs, as well as allowing the firefighters to go into an IDLH environment, meaning immediate danger to life and health. The SCBA compressor and oxygen fill stations are over 30 years old on the department. The SCBA fill stations is used to refill the bottles for the SCBAs in a safe and timely manner. The O2 fill station is used to refill the oxygen from when our patients are in respiratory distress or arrest. Currently, the SCBA systems will be purchased from West Shore Fire for $671,815. The SCBA compressor will be purchased by Municipal Emergency Services for $65,523.64. Both of these items will be used in a consortium, Sourcewell Purchasing Consortium. The oxygen fill station is not on a consortium, but we did get 3 bids. We got Municipal Emergency Services for $7,788.80. American Air Works was $8,323.79, and Breathing Air System was $12,798.79. And we're seeking to go with the lowest bid, which is, it's in the same as with the SCBA compressor fill station. So the total estimated cost of these 3 items is $745,127.44. Just to recap, the SCBA's is $671,815. The SCBA compressor fill station is $65,523.64, and the oxygen fill station is $7,788.80. Funds for this will be provided out of the $9.8 million allotted for the American Rescue Plan grant that the city received and placed into the fire department budget. So we're seeking approval.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions regarding this item? Okay, seeing none, are we prepared to vote?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the approval of the authorization to purchase self-contained breathing apparatus, 1 SCBA compressor fill station and 1 oxygen fill station for the fire department.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Brightwell, to approve the authorization to purchase the self-contained breathing apparatus as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the authorization to purchase parking enforcement ticket writing devices.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Therese Beeks. I am the Director of Code Enforcement and Community Appearance for the city. Code Enforcement is seeking an adjustment in the budget to purchase new parking enforcement ticket writing devices. Currently, the purchase of new devices will increase the department's efficiency by providing equipment that is fully functional and in line with current industry trends. The department has 5 devices currently that are more than 4 years old. One of the devices is completely defunct. The remaining 4 devices have outdated software and decreased battery life. We're experiencing system crashes and data loss while out in the field. Just this morning, I've received another email from the 46th District Court that we have a loss of data. And before that, I received an email on October 14th. So it's increasing in occurrence. The purchase of 5 new devices was not listed in the department's budget plans for fiscal year 2022-23. The department did not anticipate the need for replacement. It wasn't until a device became completely defunct that we learned the current 3G cellular is being shut down on December 31st, 2022. In short, the Samsung Note 5 4G LTE that we're currently using is being replaced with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. The purchase of devices from Duncan Parking / Civic Smart allows for seamless integration with the 46th District Court's current systems. No training of parking enforcement staff or court staff is necessary. No replacement of accessory equipment and supplies is required. Switching from Duncan Parking Civic Smart to a different vendor would result in the replacement of the entire systems for both code enforcement and the 46th District Court, creating a financial burden for both departments. The purchase of new devices from Duncan Parking Civic Smart is not competitive in nature, and no advantage to the city would result from requiring competitive bidding. Therefore, I'm respectfully requesting that council approve an adjustment in budget of $22,000 for 5 new ticket writing devices. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, Councilman Mandelbaum?
What are we going to do with the old devices? Is there any credit for them, or are they just completely unusable?
They're unusable, they're interchangeable. I've asked before if they could just simply upgrade the device and put in a new software, but they cannot.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilwoman Banks?
Does this have to be reviewed also by our IT department to make sure that it's compatible with our computers and our systems? And if so, has it?
I don't think it needs to be reviewed by IT, but I can certainly have them review it. From what I understand, Civic Smart's just replacing the cell phone. The software inside is basically a cell phone. So they're upgrading the cell phone.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Council, are we prepared to vote on this item?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we authorize the purchase of parking enforcement ticket writing devices as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve the authorization to purchase parking enforcement ticket writing devices as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the authorization to purchase replacement vehicles for the police department. I believe that's the motor pool. Yes.
No one seems to be at my height before. Council, I come before you asking a request to purchase replacement Ford Explorers for the police department. These are 3 Explorers at the cost of $50,968 apiece. These are replacing existing patrol vehicles. They are not take-home vehicles. We're asking to be able to purchase them through the My Deal purchase contract. They will be rotated in based on the age of the existing vehicles, or unfortunately, if any vehicle is knocked out of service. The total expenditure is $152,904,000. We do not know at this point which vehicles in specific that will have to be replaced. However, if they're above 2020, we are going to have to change the radios and the stickers on them. So that could be up to an additional cost of approximately $3,000 per vehicle. We asked the City Council, since we do have money in the motor pool revolving vehicle account, that the city authorizes the purchase of these vehicles in the amount of $152,904.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Ryan? Okay, seeing none.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the authorization to purchase replacement vehicles for the police department as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the authorization to purchase the replacement vehicles for the police department motor pool as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the authorization to contract for lead service replacement.
Let me explain. The next 2 items are actually related. Under the new Michigan Eagle, cities are responsible for replacing any known lead service and then for coming back into the community and doing random checks on services to see if they are lead. If they are lead, then we're required to replace them. Now, what's defined as the service is from the...
They can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay. Okay, sorry. I can hear myself perfectly, so. So Eagle has required us to make sure that there are no lead lines into people's homes. We know of, at this point, 28 lead services. Eagle will allow us to take up to 20 years to replace them. However, it's the city's belief and asking the council that we replace them as soon as possible, as funds are available. Therefore, we're asking to use D'Angelo and Sons, the company we use to do the work on San Marino, to replace the known lead services. It's expected that those costs can be anywhere from $7,923 to $3,000 for removal. We are expecting an average of $7,923 and asking City Council to approve a contract for $221,858,000 to replace those known services. Again, this was competitively bid by SACWA, and the contract documents would be walked through by HRC, who put out the contract and the bid. Therefore, we ask the council approve this contract.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Ryan?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Councilman Brightwell?
In reading through this, where are these lines currently? Do you know where these lines are now?
We know where the 28 are in. In Michigan, lead and galvanized steel was used up until about 1930, 1940. So they would be in homes that were built before then, historic homes. I know the mayor has mentioned his home would be covered by this. We're fortunate that most of our development occurred after 1950, so we aren't expecting many more lines than these known 28.
All right. Once this starts, how long would it take to get all 28 complete?
We're hoping to do it within the next year. It may fall over a year because we have to contact the 28 and actually get access inside their homes. Similar to what San Marino is, we've got to make sure, according to the law, that the line leading into the house and 14 inches beyond the meter is not lead or galvanized. So that's going to take most of the time, is contacting the citizens and allowing that, or them allowing us to have access to their homes. Once that's set, the contractor will want to hit them as quickly as they can.
Okay. And lastly, is there any immediate health risk for this?
No, because when we are required each year to do lead and copper testing, and none of our samples came back with elevated lead or copper in there. It's under a extraordinary amount of caution, and basically the Flint and Benton Harbor situation caused this Eagle to take a very aggressive approach.
Sure. Okay. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam President, I'd like to just ask a question. Pat, we know there are 28, how?
By pulling the cards and actually going out and testing them.
So I asked that question. We have really good paper records. The department started some point in the 70s. When we found lead lines, we were replacing them. Now,
That's good, thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
So, because I'm sure after this and people watching this may ask questions, you keep talking about lead and galvanized.
Right.
So a lot of the homes, even built, in the 50s, 60s, have galvanized piping in their home. But you mentioned that you have to go so many inches past the water meter, which is located in the home.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if someone goes home tonight and starts looking at their water meter and they say, oh, this doesn't look like copper, are they expected to call the city, and the city will be like, oh, sure, we'll come out and check and replace that, even if it's only those, whatever is 18 inches past the meter? Or am I missing something in the presentation?
You're going beyond what the program requires. The program requires that if we know, we have to replace it. What happened was in 2018, each community was to give their records to Eagle, and Eagle would review it and it was going to end right there. Eagle then, as pressure grew on them, decided that, okay, we're not quite sure that all communities know exactly what it is, so now we want you to go out into the field. And that's what the next item, agenda item, will deal with. But right now, we are required to test or to remove only the known lead and copper. I can unequivocally say our water is safe, even if you do have a lead line, because our water is neutral in acidity or basicness. What the state worries about is if you have a lead service line, that if it's acidic or if it's basic, it'll corrode the line and that the lead could get out, or the lead solder in your pipes, your galvanized, could get out. Our testing for the last 15, 20 years has shown that doesn't occur with the city of Southfield water, especially since we don't do anything beyond what Sockwood does with the water. So if you were to find that you had galvanized inside your home, I personally wouldn't sweat it. I lived with galvanized for 30 years. It's not an issue. It's an issue to the state.
Right, I just hear, you know, when you say, oh, well, the city will replace even galvanized, I think that may have some people worried or cause additional phone calls into the Public Works Department. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it's also, for most galvanized, and Chuck, you correct me wrong, you wouldn't use lead solder. Lead solder stopped being used about the same time. They used other solder like brass and other items, and that's not a concern. So that's why these pre-1950 homes are really, major concerns.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Madam President,
Yes, Councilman Frazier.
the records that you have are for city water, is that true?
Yes.
What about all of the homes that are on septic and well water that you would not have any records for?
They would not be under the city's jurisdiction and therefore would not be covered by this.
Dead people are dead people.
Unfortunately, we don't have the right to go onto property to replace these lines.
No, you don't have any right to go on people's property to change the lines, but I think it would be to the city's advantage to at least develop some kind of a document that you could send out to each one of these homes and let them know that that's something that they need to have a plumber come out and check, or someone come out and check to find out if their water is safe, because we have gone through years of people coming here complaining about septic lines and septic tanks and things that they didn't even understand that they had. So by saying it's not our responsibility, I don't think, to me, and I'm not putting anything on your shoulders, but to me, I don't think that's a responsible position for the city to take.
Actually, as was just pointed out to me, that falls within the jurisdiction of the county, and the county does do that, notify them to check their lines and the rest. The city can, in its regular submission of information, alert people that this occurs.
Well, we know what the county's record is, and it's testing well water for this.
And Councilman, I fully agree, the more information to the residents, the better.
Madam President, I just wanted, only recently, this council approved San Marino. You connected 99 homes. There were 319. think we're down to about 220 people still on wells. And we're happy to work with them to get their wells tested. Council did approve a program for that to happen. And we would love to figure out how to get more people connected to our water system, because for the vast majority of that 220 people, there is city water readily available. There's only a handful that don't have access to city water.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, are we ready to vote?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the authorization for the contract for lead service replacement as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Hoskins, to approve the authorization to contract for lead service replacement as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do you want to explain more on the verification or explain the process for us?
Yes. As I stated before, in 2018, Eagle requested and required all communities to submit their records and their estimates of how many lead services were known in the community. Due to more vigilant activity by Eagle, they now want us to prove it. So based on the number of services you have in a community, they wanted a random sample of homes, a sample of random homes, and for us, it is 379 homes that have to be tested. These have to be purely at random, and the randomization was done again by HRC. This is going to be a little bit longer process because these people are anywhere in the city. We have to, number one, first contact them, tell them what's occurring. You can easily, if you're worried about if you have a lead service, we would ask the person to go by their meter and do what's called a scratch test, which is like take a nickel out, go to the pipe that goes into the meter and scratch it. If it turns gray from a dark black, the chances are good you have a lead service. If they go down and it's copper color, we know it's a copper service. We don't have to enter the house. It's still part of the 379. If there's some questions, we can go in. If they give us permission, we will check it, and then we will check the line feeding in. If it is a copper line, then everything's fine. If it's a lead line, we are required at this point to contact the homeowner within a month saying you have a copper line. And I would then bring up to you folks, once we're finished with that, a recommendation that, I should say a lead line, bring you a recommendation to replace those lines. So at this point, we're now just asking for the verification. And that will take some time because it will require us to, number one, contact the residents, number two, get permission in, and number three, to actually do the work. So it's expected at this point that the total cost of that, again, because it was competitively bid through the SACO contract, will be $494,974. That's on the high end. Hopefully, this will come in by the end of the program, similar to what happened to San Marino, much less. But because, you know, the services are all over the place, we really don't know at this point.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none. May we entertain a vote?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that council does hereby authorize the Water and Sewer Department to enter into a contract in the amount of $494,974 with D'Angelo Brothers of Farmington Hills, Michigan, for service lead verification.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Banks, supported by Councilman Brightwell, to approve the authorization to contract for lead service verification as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Just as a point of information for council is, we've included now in our report, will include in our report, the results of the study. So on a monthly basis, you folks will be given information on where we stand with this.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, it's been brought to my attention that Mr. Harold Hill is here. He was listed to speak under communications earlier, but was detained at work. Would we please allow him to speak? Mr. Hill, would you come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Council President. Appreciate it. My name is Harold Hill. I ran for Southfield City Council because I really care about this city and its residents. So I stand before this honorable body today to discuss the young minds, that's on the ballot proposal coming up November 8th. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, too top loud. The bond proposal is for 30 years. My mortgage is for 30 years, and I haven't seen one that is that long. 30 years, $345,000. That represents $69,000 per student. $69,000 per student. And so I'm just going to say one thing. My recommendation is no, because that's a long time, and even sports people don't get contracts for that long without performing. And if you're not performing, you shouldn't get a contract that long. And I'm going to tell you why. Go to niche.com, NICHE.com. It shows and asks for the Southfield School District, and it gives you a performance report. And the performance is not good. We're trying to get more people. I spoke out about this before. We're trying to get more people in Southfield. And it's through school systems. Very important. Niche.com shows that only 14% in several schools can pass the doggone math test. 14%. That means 86% cannot pass. 86%. And the reading is appalling too, 70%. All they'll be able to say is, you want fries with that shake? Because that's unacceptable. And to give somebody a contract for that long is appalling. You have to have checks and balances for whatever you do in life. They do it in jobs, and you have checks and balances. And we're just donating the money because the school still gets money from the state. And that's where the checks and balances come from. So I just had to say that because it's just unappalling. And then there is one little statement on the last, let's see, the paragraph before, the second paragraph before the end. And it states, hold on a second, and I wanted to quote it. The computed millage rate required to be levied to pay the proposed bond may change in the future. May change. To what? Because, first of all, their calculations calculate what the $345 million is for. But after talking to financial people, the interest rate for 30 years, look at your house mortgage, $345 million is ridiculously high. That will triple that cost. And so they know this, and as an educator, why should you be misleading the people? You're supposed to be protecting them. And our leadership should understand that and definitely protect those people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Next, that brings us to our council portion. And the first item is a special meeting request for the council and the school board. We have scheduled for this Wednesday, October 26th at 6 p.m. at the A&T High School over on Lasser and 10 Mile. We know from tonight that a lot of residents has a lot of interest, and we feel that you should have an opportunity to hear about that from the school board. So we're offering a special meeting with the school board on Wednesday, October 26th, which is this Wednesday, at 6 p.m. at A&T High School over on 10 Mile and Lasser Road. Council, I need you to approve that special meeting. unless you have questions or comments. Okay, council?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the special meeting at Southfield A&T on October 26th at 6 p.m.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Hoskins for the approval of the special meeting on this Wednesday, October 26th at 6 p.m. at the Southfield A&T High School. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, council. Next, we have another presentation from a council person. Our Councilman Brightwell wants to do a presentation on the pilot program in the city of Southfield.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Mayor, Madam Council President, and my esteemed colleagues, as Finance Chair of the Finance Committee for the 6 of the last 7 years, I've come forward with a lot of expenditures, some real good expenditures, like the comprehensive need assessment, the purchase of cameras for our policemen, our compensation study, and also those are just some examples of things that we come forward to. And I felt, as being the finance chair, I should try to come up with a source of revenue. And currently, the finance department, finance committee, we are looking at tapping into interest earned, and that's a heated discussion. But this is another item, which is called the payment in lieu of taxes. This is a revenue source that's being generated around the country. And with my write-up, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. They are payments requested by a city or municipality from a nonprofit organization that owns tax-exempt property within the city. These are taxes, these are payments in lieu of property taxes, which cover fire, police, roads, and pilots are funds that are requested to defray those costs that the city expends to provide those essential services to everyone in the city, including the nonprofits. The history of pilots in the city of Southfield, back in January 2017, that existing council approved this study I was performing, and also, but during the passage of time, it's determined that I need to probably re-up this particular project, and because it will be implemented, and I needed to voice it with this current council. The current council, I think is about 4 of us who are new that were not there in 2017. And just a brief overview, one of the best payment in lieu of taxes in the United States is the city of Boston. Boston collects cash of $35 million plus from this payment in lieu of taxes. And also, they have another provision in the payment in lieu of taxes. There's a provision where the nonprofit can create the benefits, not necessarily from a cash, but how would they benefit the city by taking care of things that we might pay for, and Boston gets an additional $55 million in benefits to the city and the residents of Boston. And obviously Boston has a very good program, and they get 77% of what they request. What they request from the nonprofits, they get 77% of it. So this is an ideal project. But some of the other cities in the United States that have this type project, Baltimore brings in $5 million, Bristol, Rhode Island brings in $2 million, Detroit brings in $4.1 million, Minneapolis brings in $158,000, and it's all part of the right up there. So I'm not going to just go over that, but I'm not going to go over what's written. Other cities in Michigan that has the pilot program, we have Kalamazoo, Lansing, Muskegon, Traverse City, and I happened to met with the financial director for LTU, and she worked on a pilot for one of the Grosse Points. And so this is still a work in progress. We will fill in all those particular, any questions that you might have, we'll fill those in as we go along. But the project is totally voluntary. You reach out to these nonprofits, and obviously we had to have a story to tell. And from a community involvement standpoint and a community mindedness, that we are appealing to their partnership and community mindedness. So it works around the city, but it's something that has to be, socialized or massaged with respect to the nonprofits that are in the city. And a couple other entities that I will be looking forward to asking for money from, or asking for their contribution, will be the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan actually paid $29 million in fiscal year '22 to cities because of their use of the tax-exempt property in those cities. And actually, Oakland County got $1.7 million from the state of Michigan for pilot. And also another one that we will probably be eligible for will be the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense pays money out all over the United States, wherever they have Army bases or Air Force bases. They pay out money, payment in lieu of taxes, because that's property that those cities cannot use to generate revenue. So somewhere in the legislation, they provide funds to those municipalities. Potentially, in working with the assessors up to this particular point, we have potentially $5.1 million that's potentially in taxes that we are foregoing right now. So the project itself, it's in the research stage, and it's pretty much going through the various steps of how best to implement this and how best to roll it out. And Boston, years ago, rolled out, I'm going to cut this a little short now. Boston rolled out theirs out over a 5-year period of time. We just rolled it out. This is the project, this is the process, and this is what, how we are going to go about it. And if you have a community benefit, a community benefit is scorable. It has to be quantifiable. So just another source of revenue. And I just want to inform council that this is a project that we're working on, and I would like for the council back in 2017 approve the study of the project. Obviously, once it gets to implementation, we will start dealing with that. But this will be using city resources to do the research. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Councilman Cruz?
Yeah, 2 questions for you. Does this include churches as well?
Yes, it will include all nonprofits in the city.
And is it on the request is on some type of sliding scale, or is it a flat tax or payment, I should say?
Okay, we have approximately 200 nonprofits in the city of Southfield, and there will be the ones, the small nonprofits, I'm going to exclude those. I'm looking at maybe perhaps having a cutoff, those 1 million or more in assets, in assets in the city. And we might just push that up, but right now just have a cutoff point. Those nonprofits with $1 million plus assets that are non-taxable, we will start dealing with them as far as massaging the process with them.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
what's the incentive for these nonprofits to pay additional money? You know, a lot of these nonprofits go out, they try to raise money to help their services, and now we're gonna, even though it's voluntary, but we all know that, you know, someone will get a hold of that and be like, oh, look, I'll use the American Cancer Society building is, you know, just down the street. You know, they raise a lot of money, they do a lot of great work. Why would we want to ask them even to voluntarily give additional money to the city when they can use that to help those that they service?
Very a good question. That's probably the first question that has to be answered. This is all part of the corporate citizenship that we have in the city of Southfield, like corporations and nonprofit corporations. We have a partnership with everyone in the city of Southfield, and it's all deal with community mindedness. They want to see Southfield grow, and they want to see Southfield survive and materialize. That will probably be a big sales job. That's the major question. That's a major question for all the pilots that actually come up, especially ones in every city. You have to, you know, justify why should I give you money, because in essence I'm begging for money too. But this is, you know, there's a story to be told that we provide fire, police, and also road service. Those things cost the citizens of Southfield X amount of dollars. I work with our fiscal services. I can pretty much indicate that we budget about 29% for those three items, 29% of our budget. But we will probably bring it down from 29% to a certain percent of their potential taxes that would be paid if they were, you know, billed, if they were taxed. So, but that is the question, and that will be the story that we will have to tell. Why should I contribute money to the city that is hosting my organization? And we definitely host them. We have excellent service, police service. We have excellent fire service, and we get our streets plowed. And I know by campaigning, a lot of citizens move to the city of Southfield for those services. And so the story, it will be a massage story to go out to these nonprofits and try to convince them to do something. It will, and just to put a cap on this, it will be something that will be rolled out over a period of time, and it will be, let's say, massaged from the standpoint of how this benefits your organization, how it benefits the employees of the organizations, how it benefits the recipient of the services of that organization. And if, you know, cash is always gold, but then some of these nonprofits, they can provide services to the community, and that will cut into that will reduce their contributions or payment in lower taxes. That will lower that. Just for example.
So who would make that decision though, right? So you have, let's say, you know, a church that does a lot of outreach, a lot of soup kitchens, or, you know, they give out, you know, food, they give out toiletries, they give out different things to people in need.
Right.
Who determines the price point of that versus what their taxes should be? So instead of saying, okay, now instead of paying, you know, $500,000 a year in taxes because you have, you know, 100 acres,
right,
versus, okay, well, you gave out $1 million worth of supplies, so technically you don't have to pay anything. Who would make that determination? I mean, I don't want to be in that business of making that determination and
Okay, well, you know, go ahead.
I'm just curious who would, also the tax code was created to help these nonprofits not pay taxes, not have, to get charitable contributions. I just feel like we're kind of, even though it's voluntary, we all know that, when push comes to shove, some of these nonprofits don't want to look like they're not doing the right thing if they have an option.
Sure.
And I think that we're just going to put more strain on some of these nonprofits or these charitable organizations that are already doing great work, and now we're trying to add some additional stress to their fundraisers.
Okay, no, that's a very legitimate question, and there's an answer. There's a quantifiable sheet, there's a quantifiable, how do you quantify the community benefit, the community benefit services, and the quantification of it will reduce your payment in lieu of taxes. For example, and this is just based on my research, let's say in Boston, Boston College, they can tell the city of Boston, we give X amount of scholarships to residents of the city of Boston, and that reduces their payment in lieu of taxes. There's another, let's say in Providence, Rhode Island, a church there, they provide soup kitchen of meals, and they can quantify that, so that reduces their payment in lieu of taxes. So there's a formula, and the structure, that's why this will be rolled out over time. It was going to require clerical support from the administration, the staffing, and that will be pretty much in essence, there's a mechanism, and the mechanism will be to change the minds or fulfill the minds of the nonprofits why they should do this, and that's why it will come out roll out over a period of time, 5 years.
Well, I would say before I would approve something like this, you'd have to change my mind, because as of now, I just don't see, I volunteer with a lot of nonprofits, and a lot of them are struggling to even raise the funds to pay for the programs they have now. And I know we keep saying it's voluntary, but we all know how voluntary really works when you're in a city and you're saying, oh, well, we want you to pay X amount, and it's gonna come back to them somehow, I can imagine. Right now, I just don't feel comfortable putting something like this out to the corporations, nonprofit churches, schools, whoever it is. I just don't feel comfortable trying, taking away from their already great work that they're doing and the struggles that they're having in some of the fundraising.
All right. Well, these are very valid comments. Now, we will not be going at the small. These are the cutoff point will be determined, but anything less than $1 million, less than $2 million, will not be asked to contribute. The kicker of it is our citizens are paying X amount of money to provide for the welfare of these nonprofits in the city of Southfield. They chose Southfield for a reason, like our citizens chose Southfield for a reason. Our citizens pay taxes, property taxes. They pay it for a reason. And this is all part of appealing to the civic mindedness of the nonprofits, civic mindedness from a standpoint not to distract from their contribution to them, from their mission, but to also provide to the mission of what Southfield is doing for them. And to very few people exist in realizing they don't have to pay for their existence. When you exist, you are abiding by the laws. That's part of existing. You pay your taxes. That's part of existing. So it's a process, but this won't be heavy-handed. This is the big tenet for this particular process, and nationwide, the big tenet for it is 100% voluntary. And all the municipalities in Michigan that are participating in this is a voluntary process. And the cities around the United States, it's voluntary. And you just have to, we know it's going to be, it'd be not necessarily a shock, but the governing body of most of the nonprofits, we have the option to take it to their board and determine how is this hurting us, how is it benefiting us, and what are we doing as a as a corporate citizen within this municipality, what are the good things in the city of Southfield, and do we want to contribute to the health of the city of Southfield? So
I mean,
that's
you
a
know,
good question. Those things had to be answered.
I'll leave you with this one last thought, though. You have a lot of nonprofits in the city. I think you mentioned there's 200 nonprofits, but they also bring in a lot of consumers to a lot of the businesses that we have in the city, restaurants, other stores, gas stations, consumer goods. So I think there's definitely a trade-off. They have buildings here, they offer services to clients, but then you have those same clients' employees who then go and use Southfield businesses, and it helps keep them afloat as well.
Sure, but that's not their mission.
I understand, but it's something else that's adding to the prosperity of Southfield.
Well, with this particular program, we will give them the opportunity to quantify their benefit to the city of Southfield. There's a mechanism formula where you will quantify your benefit. It's called community benefit. You will quantify it. It has to be quantifiable, and that reduces the payment in lieu of taxes. But the thing of it, it will be a case of XYZ nonprofit is bringing in, they quantify $300,000 worth of benefit to the city of Southfield.
So
That
if-
more likely will.
If I can interrupt, what you're asking us for tonight is just to approve for you to create the process, do the study and the research. You will come back telling us those kinds of things, what they can use as quantifiable exceptions or deductions or what have you. But what you're asking for is the approval to go through the study and use city resources to come up with that process. If I heard and understood you correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, and then I guess our question would be how much time before we would hear something back from whenever, 6 months, a year, I don't know, just something, if we agree and go with this.
The implementation date, that is a doable, but that would be 6 months to 9 months down the road.
Okay.
This is a very intensive project, and it has to be, once, historically, when we started doing it, I didn't have the clerical support. So now I'm going to make sure I have the clerical support and all the other support that we need. But this will be 6 to 9 months down the road, but once we just get to the skeleton of this is what it looks like, and then we will have a story, the message that we were going out be a little more refined. But 6 to 9 months will be the next where the skeleton will be laid out, and we'll be able to answer all the questions more professionally and quantifiably.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Seibert?
When you look at what we're spending in public safety, $60 million a year, we're very proud of our police and fire departments and our EMS service. And one of my bigger frustrations is we don't have enough road dollars. We have higher needs for infrastructure than we have for funds available. I really think this is worth looking into. I would encourage you to continue with the study and get some answers for council, and if other things come up as you're mulling this over, to direct those to Councilman Brightwell. I am interested in what was the authority that the Muskegans, the Kalamazoos, and so on used, because that was a question I've had, on what grounds is a local municipality able to enact a pilot ordinance?
Right. I don't have it with me, but most recent one I looked at was Muskegon Today, and they laid out the various things within the municipal code for the state of Michigan, and they listed those. I can forward those to you. And a part of my notes, Mr. Hopkins, when you worked for Mr. Mouse, I got a letter. I don't have the file, but I have a letter from Mouse and also Bill Zachman.
Okay. Well, I think that's something, when you come back.
Sure.
I think the council really needs to know what ground they're on, should they decide to enact something like this.
Sure, no, I can, that's a very good,
Madam President?
legitimate question up front.
Yeah,
Madam President?
yes.
I just wanted to point, we currently do have a pilot ordinance in place. Council just, on the John Grace project, as it moves forward, a pilot ordinance is in place. That is by formula defined by the state of Michigan. Meadowcrest Apartments pays a pilot by formula defined by the state of Michigan. And then we have, I'll speak to Justin. For example, Woodridge Apartments pays 100% regular tax, and that payment's actually made by the state of Michigan. And either Rivercrest or McDowell Towers is in a similar situation. One of those two pays what would constitute a pilot, not by a MSHDA formula, but by a payment made by the state. So you do have those examples. I'd want to take apart the ones in Detroit. And I'm willing to, there might be something with convention centers too. The Cobo Hall might be making some type of payment for the impact they have on the community. And that could be the same for the Muskegon. Council President, the mayor, and I were just there at the convention center there. But I think if we dig a little deeper, we'll find certain things. And, you know, I think the challenge is entities demand certain services. Some provide a reward back to the community. At LTU, we saw their economic impact. Some of our schools, some of our churches do just incredible things. But we can certainly look at it, and the administration's happy to support this endeavor.
And could you, I didn't know we had a pilot ordinance until today, so if we could have been provided that language, that would have helped.
We use it when these housing type projects are in front of us, and we put it in place. And we had to do for one of the McDowell Towers at River Park Place too, when we did that refinance back in 2014.
So yeah, any additional information would be helpful when you prepare this research, when you do your research and get back to the full council. That way we could make, and probably answer a lot more questions, because you can see what they're actually using as criteria. So, council, do we have anything else? Nope, all right. Are we prepared to vote on this research and study piece?
Do we need to vote on it, or just a consensus?
I think consensus.
Just a consensus?
Or, I don't know.
I defer, do we need to vote on this, or can a consensus be fine?
I think a consensus would be appropriate in this situation.
Okay, thank you. So everybody's generally saying yes to go forward with the study?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. And I will, in the interim, get the couple questions answered before we get further as far as the legality of it, and so that's job one.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you.
Council, we're still under the council portion. Councilman Hoskins, did you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just want to congratulate the police department on a great buyback program they did this weekend. The police department partnered with Oakland County to do a buyback program on Saturday. It was a very successful program, and I really take my hat off to them for making sure that they are keeping our streets safe. by getting guns off the street. I also had the opportunity, I was recommended by the National League of Cities to attend the White House for a community and action series that the White House does. This series is a part of an effort that's put together by the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs to kind of discuss how states and local communities and businesses and nonprofits are using American Rescue dollars or other federal dollars that the administration has been working on. Had the great opportunity to hear from administration officials, including the Vice President and the Secretary of Energy, also our former Governor Jennifer Granholm, and other administration officials of what they're doing with investments in Michigan with all the federal dollars that they have coming here and programs that they're working on. And I was also able to tell them what their investments in Southfield have been able to do for us. Their investments have been able to allow us to invest in public safety, in our police department, in our fire department, allowed us to invest in our parks, allowed us to make investments in Centropolis to get more businesses here in the city and more business owners here. And our DEI program allows us to do staff trainings and community outreach for that. So it was very nice being able to talk to them. They also gave me an opportunity to connect with people. They said, please reach out if you have any questions or concerns. We will happily be a gateway to the federal government. I did mention our community block grant situation with the, with the funding formula and how Southfield does not get the funding it should from time to time, and they seem very interested in hearing me out on that. So it was a very good visit. I was happy to be able to be among a group of community leaders in DC to represent Michigan and Southfield.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Mr. Brightwell, did you have anything additional?
Yeah, just briefly, I know I took up quite a bit of time, but I want to put a compliment out, and I mentioned it to our deputy city manager the other day. What a very nice description, autumn display we have put up here on the campus. And it's really, really nice. I know we probably jump on them quite a bit, but I love that display, and I don't know where it came from, our art lover, but that's just nice, John. And Mr. Arena said he would pass it on to the appropriate individuals who decorated our campus, which is very pretty. And one final thing, and this is probably something that I take off, I should have passed it on to Mr. Hopkins, but I get a lot of things across my desk. Cuba, on September 26, approved same-sex marriage in a historic vote, and that's Cuba, Castro, and so I figured I would try to bring that. I was going to share it with whoever wanted to know about it, but the fact that Cuba is recognizing LBGT. They got it correct, so I'm going to pass this on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Hey, if you want to say
Councilman Mandelbaum.
Thank you. Yes, just two quick announcements. One is this Saturday coming up, October 29th from 1 to 4 here in the Southfield Pavilion. The Southfield Parks and Rec is hosting its annual Boo Bash. Again, it's this Saturday, 1 to 4. In the pavilion, there is a small $5 fee for residents, but there's hay rides, there's activities, there's interactive shows at certain times. For more information, you can look at the city's website and call the Parks and Rec Department at 248-796-4620. Also, this Monday, next week, the October 31st is going to be the last day of the Beechwoods driving range. So those who want to get in at least a little bit of practice prior to the winter and having to go to warmer climates to golf, take advantage of the Beechwoods driving range. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
No, I don't have anything this evening.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. I would just like to remind the residents that on October 29th, RASOC will also be holding their annual recycling program. It is off of 8 Mile and Evergreen area. So for those of you who have done your fall cleaning and, you know, have electronics or other items to recycle, it is a wonderful program. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yes, I have a couple of quick items. Is the fire chief still here?
No.
This can get back to, one of the things that came to my attention in another school district is that their fire department took some, you know, they had new hoses, and the old hoses they cut in certain lengths, and they measured them out for the right thing. And they distributed them to the schools so that in a case of an emergency, the teacher could use that section of the hose to jam over the pneumatic door opener, and it's just like a lock. You can't get the door open. And I thought that if they had old pieces of hose laying around, they might want to either contact a school district or a fire department in an area where they've used it to find out how, you know, what size of hoses, because it seems like every time I turn on the television, there's some problem with schools and emergencies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's one thing. The second thing is, it's also come to my attention that for a number of years on the absentee ballots, the envelopes on the absentee ballots were brown envelopes going out, brown envelopes coming back. A couple years ago, they changed them so that it was blue envelopes going out, green envelopes coming back. And for the post office, who's obligated to make sure that all the absentee ballots are delivered in time to be counted accurately, that was great. This year, for some reason, Southfield's return envelopes are purple. And they're actually reversed so that the flap that you lick and seal is on the same side as the address to send it back to the city of Southfield, and it gets caught in the sorting machines at the post office if the person doesn't seal it all away, and it could tear it open. And I don't know if the city clerk's office has received any torn up ballots, but whoever designed it needs to, I would think, use the same color scheme that almost every other city in the area uses, which is blue out and green back, rather than Southfield using purple. And I don't know why. So,
Okay.
And that's it. Thank you.
Did you want to comment?
Yes, Councilman Frazier. Actually, the state changed per the post office, everyone. So you may have friends, family that live in different municipalities, and they're using the end of their green. But everyone, especially in 23, will definitely have purple. Like some people in Southfield, we had some green left, but most people are going to have the purple.
Oh.
So it's the state of Michigan. The post office said they like the purple is more eye-catching when they discussed it with the state. And so that's why if you go to another municipality, if you have a friend who lives in Bloomfield, they may have a green and then their spouse or child may have a purple because of when the ballot went out. So it's not just us. It's the state.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Well, thank you. Is that it? Okay. Also, one other announcement is the police department is having their trunk or treat on Sunday, October 30th from 1 to 4 here at the campus. I did want to mention too that I attended the Michigan Municipal League last week, and one of the things that came up was short-term rentals and how communities are dealing with that. And I brought that back to our Neighborhood Services Committee, and they'll be taking that up and addressing it, along with Airbnbs. And I see that there was a young lady here talking about that tonight. So we are on top of that, and we are looking at our ordinances, updating them, adding what languages need to be added or what have you, what codes we need to change to make it better or easier. And we also need to look at unintended consequences. By that I mean, by having Airbnbs in your neighborhood, it puts more, depending on how long they're there, you have additional cars. You're not aware of it. If you don't know that that's an Airbnb and you start seeing 3, 4, 5 cars on the street, that alerts our police department, and now we're draining more of their services. So we have a lot of services that we need to look at when we are also looking at short-term rentals and Airbnbs, and that is being addressed and taken up with our Neighborhood Services Department. So I just wanted to mention that to you. So, thank you. With that, we'll go to the mayor.
On that note, I'd like to,
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. Thank you for that reminder. We are looking into the ice machines. I met with our code enforcement and planning departments, and you will shortly see a moratorium request, and we'll ask this council to put that moratorium in place to give those departments time to review the language and the various gas stations and others. It's not just the gas stations, it's everybody with outdoor sales products. So it's a greater endeavor. It's not as simple as just grandfathering or looking at 1 or 2 locations. We're going to try to fix the entire ordinance so that we can make it code enforceable, I guess is a nice way to say it. So that is something that we are going to be looking at. And we did have a meeting today on that topic. So thank you for that reminder. I'm sorry, Mayor.
okay. Well, I wanted to pick back up on the short-term rentals. We do have a draft that we've worked with our city attorney on. So I guess I have a question for Ms. Banks. Did we set the date and time? Because I don't think I heard.
Yes, I was gonna let you know tomorrow. It will be Thursday,
Time?
11:30. 11:30.
11:30, okay. All right, thank you. I want to pass around an invitation, and while that's going around, I do want to mention that we are registering people for the Big Rake. This will be the 7th annual. We are looking for volunteers to come out and help us rake yards of our elderly and handicapped homeowners. To volunteer to rake, call my office at 248-796-5100. And if you're interested in needing help with your yard, again, call the mayor's office, 248-796-5100. You may have noticed there's a new display up in the lobby. Again, these are 2 Southfield artists. So we're very pleased to have Rosemary Summers and Jay Graham, their work on display. This Friday night, you're all invited to the artists' reception from 6 to 8 p.m. in the lobby. And there'll be light refreshments and opportunity to meet the artists and learn more about their work, their inspiration, their techniques. This display will be up for until January. Thank you.
Mayor, did you want to let them know about the bus tour tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist will be here on the front lawn along with Congresswoman Lawrence and Stevens, Haley Stevens, and the Attorney General. They're making a swing through. And of course, our own state senator, Jeremy Moss. That's at 4 o'clock. And it's a get out the vote, reminding people to vote, the importance of voting. The governor is also doing a bus tour, and that will be, I think, 2:15 on November 6th. That's a Sunday afternoon. Again, it's outside on the front lawn.
And also Kyra Harris Bolden.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Our state rep running for Supreme Court.
Michigan Supreme Court, yes. Thank you. Our city administrator.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll take back to our Parks and Rec Department the kind comments about the holiday display in front of the front door in Parks and Rec. We're going a little greener. Our facility services group has painted the wall where our charging stations are in the underground green to bring a little bit more attention that the electrical charging stations are there. And I just want to, Ms. Banks touched on this, we do have a household hazardous waste day this Saturday at Rossock, and as Ms. Banks had indicated, it's a great opportunity to get rid of your old electronics, those chemicals in your garage, newspaper, the stuff that's taking up space, and let it be disposed of in a safe and proper fashion. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Yes, good evening, Council, Madam President. The letter that you received in your packet, this is a result of the Legislative Committee having a couple meetings, and at those meetings, we had guests come and speak regarding their medical marijuana facilities that had already been approved in the city of Southfield. They had approached the city now asking about recreational use marijuana. One thing I want to say, there was an attachment that said executive summary. That was actually from one of the medical marijuana providers. That was not the city attorney's opinion, so I apologize if there was any confusion about that. That was the information that has been coming to us at the legislative committee meetings. And so what I should say, legislative committee decided, because we do have an ordinance on the books for opting out of the adult recreational use. And as we explained to those that came to the legislative committee meetings, that the council as a whole has to make a decision. And so we thought it best, it was a consensus, just to bring it to the council as a whole so that there could be a discussion among the whole council and not within the subcommittee. So that is what I was bringing tonight, is just what we had been talking about in legislative committee with these individuals, businesses that had been approved for the medical marijuana facilities, which the city had approved in 2019, but we also do have an ordinance where we opted out of the adult recreational use. So we are, and when I say we, planning and I have had some discussions, because that's what happened back in 2019. The zoning ordinances, the licensing ordinance, those things would need to be changed should council want to consider adult use recreation. So actually, this is more of an introduction this evening and just looking for direction. I know there were some comments made at the beginning of the meeting, and that's what we're looking for so that the council can be well informed. And then we are just acting at your request, how you would like us to go forward, how you would like any staff that would be involved in this decision to go forward.
Okay. And you added a recommendation from the legislative committee, or is this recommendation from?
Well, the legislative committee just had a consensus to bring it forward to the full council, because that's where the decision will be made. And there was 2 attachments. Those attachments were not from the city attorney's office. That was actually from the medical marijuana facility business owners. And we just included that in there because I didn't know, there was no presentation scheduled. we wanted to bring it forward because they could keep coming to the legislative committee meetings, but there's no decisions being made. There was a consensus to bring it so that the full council could be informed.
Okay. And Terry, thank you, Madam Attorney. But Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, the very first thing, if this council decides to go that way, would be first we have to opt in to the to the recreational marijuana use.
And if, again, if the majority of the council would direct us to prepare the documents, at some point you would have to opt in. But there's a lot of different circumstances that you need to be fully aware of that we'd like to have some time to outline. For example, we currently limit medical marijuana facilities to certain districts, and they have to meet a number of setback requirements. A quick review of the adult use recreation says that the state mandates that any place that's not exclusively residential and is at least 1,000 feet from a school is eligible for recreation use, businesses and so forth. Another concern is that we can put limits on the number of facilities, but if we do put limits, we have to come up with some type of priority scoring system in order to determine who, if we limit to 5 and we get 10 applications, we have to come up with a scoring system. So we want to be cautious in at least making sure you're fully aware of what the different parameters and how it differs from medical marijuana to recreational marijuana. We would need to opt in, and then we would like to have the ordinances and the licensing in place prior to opting in.
Okay.
And Mr. Spence is here also. He's a little bit more familiar with the particulars. We weren't prepared to get into all the details tonight. We just need direction. If the preponderance, the majority of council would direct us, working with the city attorney, we will look at available ordinances from other communities, craft something that's appropriate. We might need to bring some outside assistance in to bring it back to you so you're fully understand, and then go through the process for approval and adoption.
Okay. And seeing that the laws might even change, state and federal, I believe President Biden was looking at making marijuana, removing it from the Schedule I list. So that would create something that we would have to do anyway, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that the state is also looking at something too. But it seems like we're being proactive and trying to get out in front of whatever we're going to have to do down the road. But I'd like to hear from the rest of the council. I didn't want to monopolize. I just knew that we had opted out, and I thought the very first thing we would have to do is opt in before we could do anything.
That's correct, but and the city attorney can advise otherwise, but we would like to have at least draft regulations in place, ready to go, should we opt in.
I think so.
So
Okay.
yes, we talked and we will consult with someone else and look at other communities because.
I'm sorry.
Am I on? I said, yes, we would need to consult with other communities in terms of what their ordinances look like, if that, just to have something in place and then wait for council's direction. As far as with the federal government, if they decide to make it not a Schedule I, I would need to look into that also. I don't know if that would really affect it such that we would have to do something necessarily, but again, it would take some more research.
Okay. And I did mention to Terry, I believe, at the Michigan Municipal League, that is a topic that was discussed, and I do know of a neighboring city that has some ordinance and things that they said they'd be willing to share with us, so. Okay. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I know that we had some speakers in the beginning of our meeting who talked about, some of the things they looked up online about crime and things like that, but a few years ago, the mayor and I, at one of the, I want to say is the National League of Cities Convention, there was a presentation that we attended by the Denver police chief, I believe, and he mentioned that once they started approving recreational marijuana, the fears that many people had never came true. So for example, there was no additional crime, and actual crime went down because there was not people trying to obtain it illegally. And when it's done in the right way, with the right ordinances and the right set of rules, you won't see those fears come about in the city. And I think that, he said they were all ready. They were geared up, ready to prosecute, and they had extra employees ready for the fears that people had. But actually, in that situation, their crime went down, and they didn't have those fears anymore because things were being regulated appropriately. And I think that if it's done right here in Southfield, I think that some of the fears that our residents have won't actually come to fruition, and will actually, you won't see any difference. So I'll just throw it out there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilman Cruz?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, I want to basically, both Ms. Taylor and Mr. Mandelbaum have already kind of encapsulated what I was going to say as well, and it is the truth. And if you look at the research, you're not going to see some upkick in crime and all that stuff, and if it's done right, just as he said. And so if we want to do this, which I hope we will, go with the opt-in, we're going to do it in a meaningful way or mindful way to make sure our neighborhoods are still safe and secured. But, when you're talking about, getting ahead of the game is what I think Ms. Taylor said to that some degree. It's going to happen anyway. So why not, I don't want to say decriminalize it, but how about letting us get ahead of the game, make it in a very structured manner, and for the most part, I don't think they're going to be selling anything much different than what they're doing for medicinal. It's just going to be available for everyone else. I'd rather have it available than somebody selling it out of their house. And I don't think that doesn't happen in Southfield. I've heard of such things. It wasn't me. But what I'm saying is, though, the element of, the crime goes down when you don't have it structured right. And if you're going to say take it to another city, okay, great. I live here in Southfield. I'll go to Birmingham and get it, and then guess where I'm coming back? To Southfield. So why not allow me to get it in Southfield in the first place, make things convenient, and help the individuals that are trying to build these businesses grow, instead of putting them in a position where, as we've already seen once already, where they don't even have the means to stay open or even get started because the medical is just not enough to keep the business flourishing. And we have some business owners that have spent a good amount of money trying to get these buildings together and these businesses together. And I think we have an obligation to support these businesses just as we do any business in our city. So that's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Hoskins?
Thank you. And I guess I'm just echoing what everyone has said. This is certainly the beginning of the process. There are multiple steps that we'll have to go through before this is even approved here in the city. And I think it's good that we're going through a process because, as was brought up, there is a lot of concerns that people have. And I think education, I know in the legislative committee we talked about at some point definitely doing some kind of town hall to be able to discuss many of the issues and concerns that residents have had about marijuana in general. Because I know the issues that have come up that came up today about recreational definitely came up about medical. And we had this letter here from somebody, from a resident who had concerns about recreational here. And there's some things here that I see they're talking about the proximity of facilities towards schools and churches and things like that. I think one of the issues, the crime issue, It's certainly something that we hear a lot. And I know I reached out to colleagues in Ferndale and Hazel Park that where they allow recreational. I talked to the mayor of Ferndale, and I asked, what are the issues? Are you having issues with crime? And she said, no, that is definitely not an issue that we have here in Ferndale. And I talked to a councilman in Hazel Park, and that's the same thing. In Hazel Park, they actually have a consumption lounge for marijuana, which is like a bar for marijuana. And I said, well, even with that, do you have any issues? And he said, no, the only issue is parking. So there, but that's just more, I mean, it's just, and both of them said, we'd be happy to give you, you can talk to our police chief, we can give you records. If there have been any issues, we'd be happy to pass that along to you. But from their knowledge, they haven't had any issues with crime. And I also think it's just the understanding of how these facilities work. I mean, it's not a liquor store. It's not, you can't casually walk in and casually walk out. There are many things in place that are used to help track and really go into the security of these places. And I think as we're going through this process, if we choose to move forward, I think some of that will come out and hopefully allay some of the concerns that residents have had. But, you know, if anything, it's prudent for us to get ahead of this and start laying the groundwork in the infrastructure if we do decide to move forward with recreational. Thank you.
Thank you. And you touched on something that I believe is education and communication. We have to let people know whatever it is. Like if we're going to go forward with this, I believe we should say to the residents, we're going to study this, we're going to have this, and then have information available to them so that they'll know what it is that this city council is doing. I think that's important. I'm sorry, Councilman Brightwell?
I think tonight we've it's been laid out, the template, how best to approach this and how best to take step by step to make sure that we are grounded when we start the process. So I think as long as we lay this template out, we can make sure Mr. Kroll or the attorney, A, B, C, D, Z, and this is where we need to start. And I feel that we have started a chorus here. So, but I just want to make sure that when we do this, we are doing it appropriately, no surprises. And I think if we, in the minutes of this particular session, if the powers that be just say this is A, B, C, D, this is what we need to do to get to a certain point. So it seems as though we have discussed the parameters in the template to appropriately get into this and do it right. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Seibert?
When Councilman Mandelbaum and I met with the top chief official of the city of Denver, and as he said, there was absolutely no crime, and this is a city that's been very wide open with marijuana, medical and recreational. He said that. But the point that he made, and I think it reflects on what Councilman Cruz was saying, marijuana is not going away. It's going to be here. Better to have it regulated, tested, and controlled. In Denver, the only arrest and the only criminal activity has been the black market, underground, illegal operations, which included muggings, arson, and even murder. And then somebody in the audience made a comment about medical marijuana. And as a number of you know, I had cancer 7 years ago. I really thought it was a death sentence. I underwent daily chemotherapy. I had a port in my chest and a pouch that I walked around with, and it's pumping this chemical 24/7. I was ill. On top of that, I went through 30 radiation treatments. It burned my skin. I took medical marijuana, and it wasn't euphoria. I want to tell you, it was relief. It gave me the ability to eat. I had lost a lot of weight, and it was just relief. When you are undergoing those treatments, it is hell. And I certainly unabashedly support medical marijuana. And if there's, really, the truth is, if there's going to be any kind of marijuana sales in this city, it's not going to be medical. Because medical only cannot sustain itself. Thus, the two petitioners are asking us to look at this. But again, I wasn't using marijuana to get high. It was relief. And anybody who's been in that situation knows exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Are we looking for a vote tonight to move this forward? What are we doing?
If I could, through the chair?
Yes.
It seems like there's consensus, but it'd be helpful if you directed the city attorney's office and the planning department to research and bring back draft regulations and an overview at the earliest possible date. That would get, because of the time and resources that we have to expend towards this, it'd be good to get the direction from council. And we've done this on other items where you've directed us to look at new regulations. Then at least we know we have the consensus of council to move forward, and then we'll come back at the earliest convenience to give you an update of the legislative, the business licensing, the zoning, and other implications of the recreational marijuana use.
Okay. So that's what they're...
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can do that.
All right.
You want to make a motion, or?
Well, I make a motion that we move forward with respect to having the planning department and the legal department research this and come back to us.
With draft regulation. With draft regulation.
Draft resolution, yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we did before.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve administration, legal, and planning the ability to research and create draft regulations regarding marijuana for adult usage in the city of Southfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam
Okay.
President, can I just add one little thing here? Can we start using the terminology adult use cannabis?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's more of an industry standard of theirs now. And it, marijuana sounds like one thing. I mean, we know what it is, but, adult use cannabis is really. a terminology.
Absolutely, thank you. No, we can't. Thank you very much. Yes.
I know we've already taken a vote, but would you intend for it to be date certain or date uncertain? As they come back to the report?
Ooh, I don't know, because I don't know how much time you need. I guess the sooner the better.
Yeah. We'll come back as soon as feasible.
Okay. Should we say with expediency? I don't think so. Just as soon as you can.
Yes.
Okay. Would that be?
Yes, I've already started looking for some consultants, and I know with staffing that we need, time, but we will also, keep the council updated with information.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. All right. Anything else, Madam Attorney?
No, Council President, thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, I just wanted to remind our residents that we have 2 more weeks until Election Day. If you have not turned in your absentee ballot, please turn it in. We have a ballot box in front of City Hall, a ballot box by the driveway for the library, and we are open 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. We will be here regarding absentee ballots on November 5th from 7 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. Please, please, please turn in your ballots.
Thank you. Treasurer and Planner, did you want to add anything else?
I have nothing else to add tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Assessor and Engineer. We have nothing to schedule. Council, we do have a closed session request for the discussion of material exempt from discussion or disclosure of state or federal statute, Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act and Section 13(1)G of the Michigan Freedom of Information Act, information or records subject to the attorney-client privilege, city attorney's election law written legal opinion. May I have a roll call vote to go into closed session?
Need a motion for?
We have
Yes.
to-
You need to make a motion.
We have a
now.
motion first.
I'm sorry.
I move we go into closed session.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman, was it you, Mandelbaum? To go into closed session. I apologize. Madam Clerk, would you now please call the roll? Take the roll.
Yes.
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 We will now go into closed session.